Hello everyone, this is a video lesson of chapter 26 of Bill Bryson's Notes from a Small Island. Now he begins this chapter by talking about the manners of the British people, and he uses a story to talk about it. He says that a man named John Fallows in 1987 he walked into a bank hoping to rob the bank. He went to the front of the counter. There was a queue, and he went to the counter and brandished his gun and demanded money. And the people who were in the queue were not very impressed. They did not care whether he came to rob or to withdraw money or whatever it was. They said that he has to go to the end of the line and stand in queue to do whatever he wanted. So John Fallows, on seeing this strange reaction from the British people, he got disappointed and he walked out of the bank without robbing. And shortly after, he was arrested. So this is a story which he uses to talk about English manners. He says that Bryson says that the English people are well mannered. See, if they want help, they first apologize and then they seek help. They start a sentence with "I'm terribly sorry." Okay, suppose they need directions. They say, "I'm terribly sorry. Could you tell me the way to this particular place?" They apologize first for the inconvenience caused because of their question, and after that only they will ask they will put forward their request. So this is something which impressed Bryson, and he says that their deference, their respect, and their quiet consideration for others, this is something which is fundamental, which is a fundamental part of British life. And even after the request is granted, they apologize again for causing the inconvenience. So this he finds very impressive. So the next day, he is, as we know from the previous chapter, Bryson is in Edinburgh, and he is stationed at the Caledonian Hotel, and he describes how the behavior of the British people. It is very, it is an instinct for them. It is not something which they learn. It is just an instinct for them to behave so politely. And he again recounts another incident where he was at the railway station, and there were two counters, two windows, and usually what happens is there will be two different queues or lines for these two counters or windows, and obviously a person who needs a service will join any one of the queues, and then they will look at the other queue moving faster, and they regret getting into the queue they are already in. സാധാരണ നമ്മളൊക്കെ അങ്ങനെയാണല്ലോ, ഒരു ക്യൂവിൽ കയറി കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ മറ്റേ ക്യൂവിൽ പെട്ടെന്ന് കാര്യങ്ങളൊക്കെ നടന്നു പോകുന്നു എന്ന് നമ്മളെപ്പോഴും വിഷമിക്കാറുണ്ട്. So here he says that at the railway station he found that there is only one queue, okay, and which serviced both the counters. അപ്പോൾ നമ്മൾ ഈ ഒരു ക്യൂവിൽ നിന്നാൽ മതി, ഏത് കൗണ്ടർ ഫ്രീ ആവുന്നോ ആ കൗണ്ടറിലോട്ട് പോവാം. He finds this a very democratic way of doing things, which is more efficient. And one more incident which he cites is something which happened in Caledonian Hotel, where one of the people, one of the customers complained that her TV is not working, and immediately the person who is at the reception apologizes and assures that they will see to it that the problem is solved. So these are a couple of examples which he gives to to talk about while talking about the manners and behavior of the British people. And we already know that in Edinburgh he had already visited Princess Street, and he was not very impressed with Princess Street, and how the old buildings were torn down and was replaced by newer buildings. And the next day, he like any normal tourist, he did some touristing around Edinburgh. But today he is very happy. He is happy to go around, and then finally, after his time at Edinburgh, he boards a train, to Aberdeen. Okay, and he describes the train journey. He obviously likes traveling by the train. He says that it was not at all crowded, and he's lulled to sleep by the movement of the train. And he sleeps, and after some time he wakes up, and he's embarrassed that he's drooling all over his clothes, and all that is described. Then after that he reaches Aberdeen. Now Aberdeen is a place which he finds very disappointing. Aberdeen is known as the granite city. Because of the availability of granite, most of the buildings are made out of granite, and because of that, this particular city is also called grey city, because of the grey color of the granite used to make all these buildings. Then he says that he says that the way through which you enter a particular town is very important when it comes to the impression that you get about the city. So a lot depends on which route you take to enter a particular city, and that route has that particular route which you take to enter a city influences your impression about the city. And Aberdeen, as I said earlier, he did not find Aberdeen very adorable. No, it's not very. It's not a great city to be in, he says. Okay, he sees all the usual things. He sees. He talks about a shopping center. He dislikes, obviously. From the previous chapter, we know that Bryson dislikes modern shopping centers, and this particular shopping center which he encounters in Aberdeen is no different. He calls it a nuisance to navigate, because he ended up lost every time, and the streets are lined with precisely the same stores which he saw in every other city. No difference. Okay, so he says that there's nothing unique about Aberdeen. It is like any other British city. It is like anywhere and nowhere. It is like any other British city, and it seems like he has gone nowhere. He hasn't traveled. And Aberdeen is, he says that Aberdeen has won the Britain in Bloom competition 9 times because of its flowers and gardens and all. But he says that he hardly saw any gardens or green spaces. All he saw was granite, buildings made out of granite. Then again he found it very difficult to find a unique place to eat, because he has been traveling for some time now. He has tried all types of food, Thai, Mexican, Indian, Chinese, Scottish. He has tried everything, and he wanted to eat something unique, but unfortunately he couldn't find any place which served anything unique. So finally he opted to have Indian food, and he says that it tasted like every other Indian meal he had during the trip. So finally he realizes why he doesn't find Aberdeen very beautiful or something. He doesn't find anything special in Aberdeen. He says that Aberdeen is a very innocuous city. It is more or less like Innocuous means harmless. So harmless, here he means that it's a very bland city. There's no spice in this particular city. And he says that the problem is not with a city as such, okay, because the problem is the nature of modern Britain is like this, because most of the British towns, modern British towns look alike. He compares all the towns to a deck of cards, okay, cards that you play with, okay, or you can shuffle all the cards, okay, but the cards will remain the same. It's just that you get the cards in a different order. നമ്മൾ എത്ര ഷഫിൾ ചെയ്താലും കാർഡ്സ് അത് തന്നെ ആയിരിക്കും, നമുക്ക് കിട്ടുന്നത് അത് ഡിഫറെൻറ്റ് ഓർഡറിലായിരിക്കും. അതുപോലെ തന്നെ ഈ ബ്രിട്ടീഷ് ടൗൺസിൻ്റെ കാര്യം ഇദ്ദേഹം പറയുന്നതാണ്. It's just like a deck of cards. They are all the same thing, just that you get them in different order. All are the same. And ഈ ഒരു ചിന്ത ഇദ്ദേഹത്തിൻ്റെ മനസ്സിൽ വന്നതിന് ശേഷം he finds this particular city, Aberdeen, more agreeable. Okay, he finds it pleasant. Okay, and our prejudiced mentality that Aberdeen is a very bland city, adonnu maarikitti. And it's just like he understands that Aberdeen is just like everywhere else. It is a plain British city. Then the next day he finds Aberdeen much better, because he found it very dull the previous day, and the next day he finds it better, and he finds it very comfortable and homey. And then he boards the train again to this place called Inverness. So as he is going by train, again the train was more or less empty, and the train had only 2 carriages, and there was this young man who was going around with a trolley. Okay, you can buy food from the trolley, food and snacks and everything, coffee, all those things you can buy from the trolley. We don't find any trolley എന്നൊരു സമ്പ്രദായം നമ്മുടെ നോർമൽ ഇന്ത്യൻ ട്രെയിൻസിലൊന്നും നമ്മൾ ഇല്ല. So he says that this young chap was very enthusiastic, and ഇത്ര ഒരു enthusiasm. See, he's doing a job where he's pushing trolleys so that the passengers would buy something from him. അത് ഇത്ര enthusiasmത്തോടുകൂടി ചെയ്യുന്നെങ്കിൽ ഇദ്ദേഹത്തിന് ജോലി കിട്ടിയിട്ട് അധികം നാളായില്ല എന്നൊരു നിഗമനത്തിൽ ബ്രൈസൺ എത്തുന്നു. Okay, probably he got this particular job very recently, because he was very keen to sell all those things in the trolley. And finally he reaches Inverness, and he describes the sights which he sees on his way to Inverness. And he says that unlike Aberdeen, he liked Inverness immediately. Many of the things in Inverness were very impressive according to Bryson, especially the little cinema, the old-fashioned cinema. Cinema here means what we call a theatre. Okay, the theatre's name is La Scala, and he liked it very much. He liked the well-preserved market arcade, a lot of things he liked, especially the river. The river there, he'll talk about it soon. And one particular institution which he noticed was a joke shop which sold useful items like a sneezing powder which you can use to prank others so that they will keep on sneezing. Pinne something he calls plastic vomit. It looks like vomit, but it is plastic. So he says that you can use it to reserve seats or save seats on a train. ഓക്കെ, ഇതുകൊണ്ട് സീറ്റിൻ്റെ മണ്ടയ്ക്ക് വെച്ച് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ അത് വോമിറ്റ് ആണെന്ന് വിചാരിച്ചാൽ ആരും ആ സീറ്റിലെന്നല്ല പരിസരത്തേ ഇരിക്കില്ല. സോ he finds it very handy. this plastic vomit. So then he talks about the river, a charming river overhung with trees. He talks about the cathedral, which looks almost like the cathedral in Notre Dame. Then he describes the particular town, and especially he takes note of a particular castle which is up for sale, a very elaborate mansion, a spacious house, which is derelict. Derelict means it is dilapidated. It is on the verge of ruin. Okay, no one is living there, and it is up for sale. And he, likes it immediately. And at one point in time, he thinks of buying this particular mansion. But then he says, what will he tell his family? Okay, I can't tell my family that we are going to a place where they won't get we're not going to a place which has shopping malls, or a place where you get 100 different television channels, or a place where you get hamburgers the size of a baby's head. ഇങ്ങനെയുള്ള ലക്ഷറീസ് ഒന്നും കിട്ടുന്നൊരു സ്ഥലം അല്ല ഇൻവേർണസ് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. So that is just his imagination, what he would tell his family in case he buys this particular mansion. And then he goes on to talk about the negatives of Inverness. And the major negatives he finds with Inverness is two buildings. He calls them ugly buildings at the center of the town. Okay, and he says that the entire town is ruined by these two ugly structures. And he says that it is so ill designed that you can actually walk around them at least twice without ever finding the front entrance. രണ്ട് ചുറ്റും നമ്മൾ നടന്നു കഴിഞ്ഞാലും അതിൻ്റെ ഫ്രണ്ട് എൻട്രൻസ് നമുക്ക് എവിടെയാണെന്ന് അറിയാൻ പറ്റാത്ത രീതിക്ക് പുവർ ഡിസൈനിങ് ആണ് അതിൻ്റെ. ആൻഡ് he says that it is so ugly, and it is so bad, and it is so disappointing that it is beside one of the handsomest rivers in Britain. ഇത്രയും ഭംഗിയുള്ളൊരു റിവറിൻ്റെ സൈഡിൽ ഇത്രയും ugly ആയിട്ട് രണ്ട് ബിൽഡിങ്സ്, ഇറ്റ് ഈസ് awful beyond words, he says. And he compares it to a Sheraton construction. Sheraton is a chain of hotels. You may have heard of Sheraton chain of hotels. And he compares these two buildings to a Sheraton building, a hotel in Hobart, Tasmania, Australia. And he says that it is constructed on a waterfront, പക്ഷേ the restaurant is at the back. അതായത് ഒരു വാട്ടർ വ്യൂ ഇല്ലാതെ വാട്ടർ ഫ്രണ്ടിൻ്റെ മുന്നിൽ പണിതിട്ട് പോലും റെസ്റ്റോറൻറ്റിന് ആ ഒരു വ്യൂ കൊടുക്കാതെ ഹോട്ടലിൻ്റെ പുറകിൽ കൊണ്ട് വെച്ചേക്കുന്ന ഒരു ടൈപ്പ് സ്റ്റുപ്പിഡ് ഡിസൈനിങ്. So he compares these two buildings he finds in Inverness to this particular hotel he saw in Hobart, Australia. And he says that probably these two buildings were constructed by the same person. And then he gives a list of poor buildings, of all the buildings I would deeply love to blow up in Britain. Okay, if he's given a chance, he would destroy or blow up these buildings. The Maples building in Harrogate, then Hilton Hotel in London, the post office building in Leeds, and all the buildings of British Telecom. All these buildings are poorly designed, and he hates all of them. And he adds these two buildings in Inverness to the list. And he says that one of these ugly buildings is the regional headquarters of the Highland Enterprise Board. Highland is a town. And the other building belongs to the Inverness and Nine Enterprise Board. Nine again is a town. So ഇവരുടെ രണ്ടുപേരുടെ ഉടമസ്ഥതയിലുള്ള ബിൽഡിങ്സ് ആണ് ഇത് രണ്ടെണ്ണം. So that is chapter 26.